Hello, third grade learners. The directions today, and first let's talk about what our learning target and success criteria is. So our learning target is I can create I guess they would call it a fractured fairy tale, because you're taking a fairy tale and you're turning it into a different version of what the fairy tale could be. So our learning target is I can create a fractured fairy tale, and our success criteria for today would be that I can complete an organizer about a fractured fairy tale. That's your goal for today. So the directions here say this is the classic version of Cinderella. And when we say classic version, we're saying like what the original story of Cinderella was like. So this is the classic version of Cinderella. Briefly read below and think about what you want to change for your version of Cinderella. So you are going to make your own version of Cinderella. And you've already read and watched videos about other versions of Cinderella, and you've already been kind of maybe brainstorming in your head about what you want your version to look like. So this is the classic version of Cinderella. So in the classic version of Cinderella, there's magic, carriage, and the carriage and dress magic will end at midnight. There's a setting, a kingdom from long ago. The opening sentence is once upon a time. There are some bad characters like the evil stepmother and evil stepsisters. There's a problem. Cinderella's evil stepmother and sisters forbid her from going to the ball. With magic, she goes and dances with the prince, but at midnight runs away and loses her glass slipper. And then the solution for that was the prince searches for his princess by having every girl try on the slipper. Her stepsisters fail, but when Cinderella tries it on, it fits. They are married and live happily ever after. And do you see this button up here? So if ever you're like having a hard time seeing, really you can click this zoom button, or hit this down arrow, and it can zoom in for you if you're having a hard time seeing. And it kind of makes your screen a little bit bigger. Ooh, that's way too big, isn't it? Okay, let's back up a little bit. Okay, so if you're ever having a hard time seeing your screen, feel free to kind of hit this zoom thing and then just kind of like do whatever percentage or, whatever works for you for when you're looking at your screen. Okay, the solution, the prince searches for his princess by having every girl try on the slipper. Her stepsisters fail, but when Cinderella tries it on, it fits. They were married and live happily ever after. And then we have the good characters, the Cinderella, the fairy godmother, Cinderella's animal friends, and the prince. So this is just the classic version of Cinderella. Now, what you're going to do today, and I'm going to see, let me see if I can move this over. So what you're going to do today is you are going to think about these story elements, and let me read the directions for the next one. And here are the directions for what you're doing today. And notice how it says Tuesday at the top. And yesterday's it says Tuesday at the top. So looking at today's, now it's your turn to brainstorm ideas for your version of Cinderella below. It's up to you as to how much of the story you change, but make sure there's at least a couple story elements similar to the original Cinderella, because we want people, when they read your story, to be thinking, oh yeah, this kind of reminds me of Cinderella. And if you change it too much, then they're really not going to see that connection between the classic old version of Cinderella and the current version of what you're writing. So it's up to you as to how many of these story elements you keep the same from the original version, and then how many you change. All of this is up to you. So today what you're going to do is you're going to complete this organizer with your version of Cinderella, and then tomorrow you are going to start writing your story. And remember, at the beginning of a story, see how it says beginning of a story, that's when the author's kind of, telling a little bit about the characters. They're building like the character development. And then some of the problems start to begin. On Thursday, you're going to write the middle of your story, and that's when your character's facing most of the problems. And the reader's like, I don't know how they're going to get out of this. I don't know what they're going to do. And then on Friday, that's where you're going to write the end of your story. And that's when, the problems are going to start getting resolved. Don't forget, number one, Make sure you add dialogue into your story. Dialogue is when people are talking to each other. So add that dialogue in. You don't want just dialogue because we also need to hear the narrator kind of, explaining a little bit about what's happening, but there should be dialogue in your story. And remember, every time there's dialogue, every time someone's speaking, that's creating a new paragraph. So make sure it's not all one big long paragraph. You need multiple paragraphs. And the way you know you need to make a new paragraph is when someone new is speaking in your story or when there's a new event that's about to occur in your story. So I'm really looking forward to see how you turn the classic version of Cinderella into a different version of Cinderella, into a fractured version of Cinderella. Happy writing, learners. Keep up the great work, and I miss you all.